Pink Poodle Crafts, join the Poodle Pack. It's time to get creative and make you laugh. Make your own art today. Pink Poodle Crafts is the way.
What a good boy.
Hey crafty family, it is me. And today I'm going to show you how to make a journal out of a piece of remnant vinyl that kind of looks like leather, but it is a vinyl. It's a sample piece. I'm going to show you how to do this. I'm going to show you, hopefully in a series of some videos over the next couple of weeks, how to make a journal I'm going to break it down to the most basic level I can, because you know what? I'm tired of hearing people say that they're afraid to make a journal. And I hear that all the damn time. I hear people say, oh, I haven't made a journal yet. I don't know if I can, or I'm nervous. I don't know. I don't know. And I find this to be like so weird, because it is not hard to make a journal. It really is not hard to make a journal. I don't know what it is about it. I'm not sure if it's the sewing of the pages. I think that might be the biggest potential obstacle. Maybe you can comment below if you're somebody that either just started making journals or hasn't made a journal yet. And if you've just started making them and you have made them and it's something that you were afraid to do initially, what were you most afraid of up to doing the journal? And then after you completed your first journal or your first couple of journals, what surprised you that ended up being easier than you thought about it? Like, was something easier than you thought it was going to be? Was something harder than you thought it was going to be? Leave a comment and let me know, because I'm interested to know. And then if you've never made a journal and you're actually a little afraid or intimidated to make a journal, comment below and let me know why. What part of it, what about it makes you intimidated? Because I'm curious. I think from what I've gathered, I've heard people talk about the sewing of the pages, which is really, really easy. And I think people overcomplicate it, and I think they think it has to be overcomplicated, and it really doesn't. So I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to sew a journal. See, I hate using the word sew, because that's what I think intimidates people, because you're really not sewing. It's not like sewing. I think that might make people nervous to hear the word stitching or sewing a journal. I think that makes them nervous, because really you're just stringing it. And I feel like that's a better way to say it, because it's less intimidating to say that I strung the pages, because that's really what you're doing. You're not really sewing. I don't consider sewing 3 stitches into 3 holes really sewing. That's more stringing something together. And so, if you break it down to its basic core, all it is you're taking a stack of paper, putting a couple holes in it, and running the string through it just so it all stays together. I mean, that's all it is. It's not intimidating. And we're going to start off with the most basic types of journals, which is like a 1 signature, which is what I tell everybody. Don't try to make these massive 4 and 3 and even 2 signature. And if you don't know what a signature is, that is, here, I can show you. This is what you should not start out making, is journals this wide. So each one of these lines of the string is holding a signature of paper in. And all a signature of paper in is a series of paper folded in half to form pages. So here's the middle, and as you can see, they are like 8.5 by 11 pages folded all together. If I could find one signature, fold it all together, and then in the middle, 3 holes put, and just put some string through it. And that's it. That's a basic journal. Now, adding all the embellishments and stuff, we'll get to that later. Don't even worry about that. That's super easy too. Like, if you break it down into the parts, it makes it trivial easy, like so easy. don't look at the whole picture, because I think that's too what people are seeing. They're seeing all of that and going, I can't do that. That's a lot. And yeah, if you're looking at it like that, it is, because if you've never done it before, it looks like it looks like it would be like alien to try to figure out how to put it together. But if you break it down to what it is, I swear to you, it's not alien. It's not hard. It's really not. It's just, it seems intimidating because, oh, look how big it is, look how thick it is, so it must be hard to do. But I promise it's not hard. It can be time consuming. There's a difference between hard and time consuming. It can take a little bit of time. I'm going to shut the autofocus off because this thing's going to keep bouncing in and out because this camera is terrible. It's time consuming. Not always. Like the one we're going to do today is not so time consuming. So this, I'm going to start off with this, even though I probably should start off with a piece of paper, but I did want to show how to do this because in my auctions, I have had up for bid piles of these vinyl pieces and fabric sample pieces. And I have auctions every few weeks. I'm having another one in... when is it going to be? The 25th? No, 26th. Either the 26th or the 27th of the month. I'm going to have another, probably the 26th, have another auction. And I'll have more vinyl samples. But I want to show, you know, just to make a simple one signature journal. And this is no different than a piece of paper. So you wouldn't, just because this is a piece of vinyl doesn't mean it's any more complicated. If you want to use a piece of, you know, nice scrapbook paper, you know, you don't want to use something like copy paper, but like for a cover, but you want to use like, you know, a heavy, either cardstock works great. Like cardstock is a bit thicker, a piece of nice scrapbook paper, whatever, and just fold it in half. Find a size you like and fold it in half. Now this is a bit narrow and a bit long. And it had a tag here, and I tried my best to get it off without destroying it, because what I was going to do, and if you ever get one that is this long and folding it over makes it a little too long this way compared to the width of it, you would take it, if yours wasn't damaged, and fold it up a ways, take a needle and thread, and this is where you would stitch. Any stitching that would be done is just stitch here, just doot right here, with just a needle and thread. You don't even have to do it through a machine. It would take 30 seconds and go doot, 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 doot here, this way. And you got to make the noise. You got to go doot, doot, doot. And then when you fold it in half, it's a little less awkward of a size. And not only that, if you stitch it there and there, you'll have pockets here and here. But because mine got messed with and I don't feel like dealing with it, I'm going to cut mine. And I'm going to do the best I can to cut it straight. That doesn't mean it's going to get cut straight necessarily. But I'm going to try and cut it. And if I don't do a very good job, I'll adjust it. But because it's hard to find a way to cut this with a cutter, because it is a piece of vinyl. Let's see. Just slightly off here, but I can see based on the pattern, which is what I'm going by, which is I'm using this little pattern to kind of follow and sort of use that to cut it. Not all pieces will have that ability, but there we go. See, so that's pretty straight based on the pattern there. It's good enough anyway. So, except for that little bit right there, I see. There we go. At least, maybe it's straight enough. Let's see. Yeah, not too bad. I can use a little bit of finagling right here. You could always take a razor blade and a ruler. I'm sure you guys know that trick or seen that trick. If you have a what do you call it? A craft knife, you could, you know, do this, right? And then take your craft knife and just go like that a few times and it'll cut through. And it'll give a better cut. But, you know, I'm a rebel, so. Now, the insides of these aren't the most beautiful things, but, you know, who cares? Oh, that's a little uneven on that side now. Okay. Doesn't have to be perfect. Also, I want to show you what we did in my Patreon class today. We took old junk jewelry or old junk of any kind and made monogram canvases and did like a mixed media monogram, and then I took stickles and outlined it so it would stand out. Isn't that cool looking? It's kind of shabby chic-ish. It's like mixed media shabby chic because I'm going to put this in my bedroom, which is like a really pale pink. So I just wanted to show that because it came out pretty. It came out pretty. And if you want to join my Patreon and get classes and all kinds of fun stuff, access to my secret live streams, access to my secret classes, access to my secret Facebook group, there's a link in the description, and it's Patreon. And yeah, there you can sign up and join. Okay, so enough jibber jabbing. So you take your piece of material, vinyl, whatever you want to use, paper, and you fold it in half. Now this doesn't really crease because it's vinyl, but I could put like a faux crease in it so I can just see where the crease is, because that's all I want to do is just kind of see where the crease is, because obviously we have to put holes in it and I have to know where it is. Now if you're using a piece of paper, that's easy because you just fold it and the fold is your crease, obviously. But with vinyl, it's not as, it doesn't want to be as cooperative. So you just kind of got to make a little crease, and then you can see the crease in here and just put it like a pencil mark. That'll help you along the way. And you're not going to see that once it's, once the, you know, thing is, once the paper's in and everything. I'm just putting a light mark. So that's the journal cover. Like, there's nothing much more to that. That's all you have to do is find the size that you want. And I don't really, some people like, oh, you know, I like to have it be 6 by 9, or it has to be this by this, or 8 by 5, or blah, blah, blah. I just kind of go on what looks good. I just hold it and go, yeah, that'll work as a little journal. You know what I mean? Or even with this one, when I first did this one, I didn't, and this is made out of a cereal box, by the way, like a Lucky Charms cereal box. That's what this is. This fold is the side of the cereal box. It was like a family size. It was like the thick ones. This is the side of it. So if you look at it, you're looking at the side of the cereal box. Of course, the cereal box is much taller and it's much wider out to here. But if you open it up, and one of the sides of the cereal box has a seam and the other side doesn't. This is the side that does not have the seam, like the glued together seam of the box. This is the flat side that doesn't have the seam. It was this side that had the seam. I opened it at the seam. I opened the top, opened the bottom, opened it at the seam, folded the whole thing open, took my cutter and just started cutting it down until I got a size that I was like, yeah, that looks good. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be a specific size. You can make it whatever size you want, your journal. It doesn't matter. Whatever looks appealing to you, that's what you do. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to complicate it. There's nothing complicated about this at all. So, okay. So this is a piece of fabric. It's folded in half. And really now all we have to do is make pages for it. So what you want to do for pages is you could do anything for pages pretty much. You could do copy paper. You could do tracing paper. You could do scrapbook paper. You could do coffee dyed paper. You could do anything you want, really, that'll fold in half, that isn't super bulky. you could do. You can even do like some cardstock, you know, as long as you don't put like a ton of cardstock in, because unless you're making an art journal and you're putting like watercolor paper in that's really thick and you're making it specifically for that. But if you're just making it as like a cutesy little junk journal or fun journal or just a journal to have, just to make your first journal, then stick to papers that are on the thinner side. It'll be easier to fold. It'll be easier to deal with. So I've got some old scrapbook paper. Let me get that out of the way. I've got some old scrapbook paper. This is a book from, I don't know when, but it was a long time ago. I've had this forever. It doesn't have a date on it anymore, but it's from the paper studio. I got it and it had like a ton of paper in it, but it's nice and thin. So I usually, and they still sell thin scrapbook paper. And I personally like thin scrapbook paper for journals, the insides of journals. I will use some thick scrapbook papers like here and there. Like I'll make a couple of the sheets thicker, but most of them I like thin. So if I'm not going to use copy paper, coffee dyed paper, tracing paper, or like ledger papers, or, you know, any kind of paper that's kind of like copy paper weight, then I like to use scrapbook paper because it's perfect. The thin scrapbook paper, you can get it at the store. Usually it comes with a lot of paper because it is thinner. So you get a lot more variety. Now this is an older book of the paper, so this isn't the most stylish patterns anymore, but I don't care. You know, who cares if you're just making a fun book? So I'm going to pick out whatever, just a bunch of papers that are in the brown and kind of like dark red colors. I mean, I could add colored paper in there. It doesn't matter. And I might add like blue or something. I don't know. Blue and brown go together, right? So whatever. I'm just going to add like one of each of these brown papers because I can get at least two pages for this. 2 folded pages out of one of these big pieces of 12 by 12 paper. Here's one with like brown with paisleys. This can be like, I don't know, like brown. And maybe I'll pick a different color to go with it. Did I miss one? No. So I'm just picking a bunch. Let's see, what would go good with brown? Maybe like a teal. And these are like, are these brown? They're like a reddish brown. They'd go too. More back here. These are more. There's some that are like blackish. I could just do like black and brown or yellow and brown. I don't know, just looking to see what color looks. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll do like black and brown since I've got black pages here. I mean, I'm trying to think. Yeah, because I have black in the other one too. So maybe I'll just do black and brown. Just a black and brown journal. I don't even think I've ever made a black and brown journal. I think the patterns are a lot similar in these. It's just different colors. That's why I mean, like, it's not the most stylish journal on the, or paper on the planet, but who cares? Doesn't matter. And then people, you know, they get afraid to make a journal for the reason of also because they're like, well, then what do I do with it? You can do anything you want. You can make it useful for yourself, or you can just use it as a way to just embellish it to have fun with it. You know what I mean? You don't have to make a journal to have a purpose. Not all journals are created equal. Not all journals have to have some sort of profound purpose. They don't have to be a diary of all your secrets. They don't have to be filled with amazing art. It doesn't have to be that way. You know, you can just make a journal just to make it and enjoy embellishing it or collaging in it or whatever. You don't have to make a journal that has some amazing purpose. Or you could just make the journal and then maybe find a purpose for it later if you don't, you know, or give it as a gift. to somebody else. But, I mean, I think that's another thing that'll stump people sometimes is because they think, well, I wouldn't know what to do with it. Who cares? Just make it to enjoy making it, to practice making it, to get the hang of making it, to, just to do it. My heat gun just fell on the floor. You know what I mean? Don't worry even a little bit about what you're going to do with it, because it doesn't matter at this point. You know, just make it. Just make it. I mean, unless you're not interested in making a journal, then why are you watching? I'm just kidding. No, I mean, if you've always wanted to make one, but there's just certain things that have always stopped you from making it, you know, don't put so much thought into the whys and the, you know, oh, well, what if I don't do it right? Because you'll do it right. We're going to make sure of it. I'm just pulling out a whole crap load of paper. I'm not saying I'm going to use every bit of this because I'm only doing one signature in this book. But I don't know. I'm just pulling out paper. I'm going paper crazy here, which I probably shouldn't do, but I can always save it if I don't use it. All right. That should be enough for now. We'll see. Because we can use 2 of these pages. So at the simplest way to do it, here's what I usually do is I take the cover of the journal and I look and see. So right here would be a page, because you want to make it as wide and as long pretty much as the journal. So if I can get, like, if this is my piece of paper, okay, I can get one piece out of here and one piece here. Now, of course, I'm going to cut that white part off. And no, the paper does not have to fit right to the top, right to the bottom of the page. You can have pieces that are smaller, which is what, you know, creates some interest in your journal, is to have some pages that are not perfectly, you know, the exact size of the journal. You can just fold some, oh, I have this random scrapbook scrap that will look good in this journal. So since, if I take this, right, and I measure it up, and what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to measure it as tall as this, because we don't want it like sticking right to the, like, we don't want our paper to be like right up to the tippy top of the cover and at the very bottom, right? I'm not worrying about the length right now, but so if I were to bring this past the paper a little bit to like kind of get an idea. So if it was like here, like this, you see how I'm leaving a little room. You probably can't see. Like, let's say it would come to about there and there. So basically I can get, it would be a little bit smaller than the cover, but I can get, and I don't have to do this for all of them, but I can get 2 pieces out of this. So if this is, how much did I cut? This is almost 12 inches. So if I cut this at about 6 inches, and take it, now I can fold it in half. And it's, I know it's too long that way, but, and yes, it is short that way, but it's not too short for that way, because we're not going to do all of them like that, but you could do some of them to where you could just cut it in half, you know, and this is, like I said, depending on the journal you're making. If your cover is bigger, it might work better to do, you know, not cut it directly in half and actually measure it to the length of your journal. So I just cut that in half like that. So that one's going to be a little shorter than the cover. So then the next one, if you want it to be perfect for the cover and the right perfect size for the cover, what you would do is you would lay your cover out flat. Let me see if I could zoom you in a little bit to help you see. Let's see, that might be helpful. Not that much. Let's try that. Okay. So here's the journal cover laid out flat. You take your paper, if it's double-sided, take whatever side's the lightest side so that when you put a mark on it, it shows up and doesn't get, you know, pencil mark. You can erase the pencil marks later if they happen to not get cut off completely. You would line your paper up, right? So that it had a tiny little sliver. It wasn't quite down to the edge there, right? And just so you could see the tip there. We're talking about just the length right now. We're not talking about the width. But you're going to do the width this way as well. But right now, just what you would do is, and I do this when I'm making cards, and I want the paper, you know how you fold the card in half, and then you want to put like a piece of decorative paper on it, on like, you know, a greeting card. You can fold the card base in half, and you want to put decorative paper, but you don't want to measure every little thing. This is what I do. This is how I cut it without having to measure, because I hate measuring. Is so I put it so there's a little bit of a lip. It doesn't even have to be that much. Just a little bit of a lip here and here. And I have the paper just inside of that. And then I draw a mark. Here's the edge of the cover. I go in just a little bit like I would here, like eyeball, about that much. It'll even up at the end. You don't have to worry about being perfect in any way, because it'll work itself out at the end, because it's not, you know, you can readjust. So, and I draw a mark in a little bit. So if my cover ends here, I'm drawing a mark down here. I'm just giving it a little border. And so then I go over to here, because then that means I'm going to cut it that way. So to cut it to meet that, I'm just going to mark a little bit in from this side. So if this is where the width of the cover is, I'm going to go in a hair as if I was leaving a little border, like literally a 1/16 of an inch, just go in. Now I have my marks here and here. So you take your cutter, you got your mark, and you cut it straight across, just like you would for anything else. You move that aside. Now you cut it here. And there's your paper that fits inside of your journal with a little bit of leeway. So when you fold it in half, and you fold your paper in half. Now there's going to be another problem. Hold the phone. When you fold it in half, it's likely going to come right to the edge, this first piece. I don't want you to worry about what happens when it comes out the edge, because I'm going to show you why it does that and how to fix that at the end. Let's not worry about that now. So every time you cut a piece of paper, you cut it the same way I just did. And mostly what we're doing is making sure the length up and down is perfect, because right now we can now put it in. It has a little bit of a lip there, a little bit of a lip there, and the first piece will fit in kind of perfectly, but real close to the edge, if not outside of the edge. But don't worry about that. Like I said, do not fret about that, because that doesn't matter. It can stick out all the way to here. It doesn't matter. We're going to take care of all that at the end. But this is just a good way to get some papers cut to size so that you can get a start. So that if you do it like that, you know that you're cutting it you're going to cut the perfect length, and you're going to cut the width like this where you marked it, and it's never going to be too short, because that's something that could happen is, which is fine if you have like a few pieces scattered in that are shorter than others, but it's better it's a little long than a little short. And like I said, we'll take care of that at the end. That's how I do all my pages, which it's hard to see because I have tabs on there, but you notice how the cover for the pages, not the tabs, but the pages like don't stick out. It's just the tabs and stuff that stick out. And I'll show you how to do that. So you got your first paper, right? So now you could do all of them like what I just said, line them all up, yada, 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 and do that. Or you can make it easy on yourself. If you're doing all the same size paper and they're all starting out at 12 by 12, and if it has one of these weird white bands on the top of it, I'm going to cut a couple of them off. This one doesn't have the perforations, so you just have to line it up and cut it off. So I'm going to do that. Okay. So, all right. So what you can do is take, depending on what your cutter is and how many sheets it'll cut through at one time. Let's say it only cuts through 2. So, okay, here's 2 pieces of scrapbook paper. Now, if your paper is not all the same size and your paper is like all different sizes, then you're going to get together all the ones that are the same size and you're going to cut those this way, and then you'll do the other papers. Like, in other words, any of them that you can stack together evenly enough to, you know, to keep them together pretty evenly while you're doing this. Unless you want to do it one at a time, you can do that too. Now, if it's a paper that's already close to the size, you can just fold it in half. So if it's not a super big piece of paper, you can just go ahead and fold it in half. Like, oh, you have this piece here, you can just go ahead and fold it in half, and don't worry about the length, don't worry about the width, because you can do it all at the end. Okay, because you can do that. But if we're talking about a tiny journal cover this big with these giant papers, it's kind of a pain in the ass to do it like this and then try to finagle it. It's easier when it comes to big paper to do it. But if I was just using copy paper, I would just fold all the copy paper in half, because it's not going to be that much bigger than this journal. It'll be bigger, but not that much bigger. And then I would go through and do the step that I'm going to do after I get these cut, like where I cut all of them at once. And I do that with my rotary cutter. You could do it with a razor blade. You can't do it with one of those cutters that has like the little thing, that razor that slides up the thing. It needs to be a rotary cutter or a razor and a ruler, which I'll show you that too. So anyway, back to what I was doing. You're going to take the pieces of paper, and I'll even get a piece of copy size paper to show you what I mean. And you're going to line it up on here as best you can. And you're going to mark it and mark it. And then you're just going to cut all of them at once. So we're just going to cut all of them at once. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And keep all your scraps, because we can utilize those too. So then, you know, if you have more than 2 pieces, fold them individually so that they fold nice and even. But I have 2 pieces here, so it's no big deal. And it's good to have some sort of bone folder, or like even a credit card, like the side of a credit card or something sturdy, to kind of fold your edge down to make your edges nice and so that they don't pop open so much. So give them a good little fold. And then you could start building your signature, because we're only doing one signature in this book. So you're going to build it. And if it ends up where a piece is a little too long or sticking out, it's going to stick out as you add pages to the middle, because as you add more and more pages to the center piece, so as you keep folding and adding pages, folding and adding pages, what's going to happen is when you close it, these pieces are going to stick out. Because as you're folding it, this part here is getting thicker. And so it's pushing the middle pieces to stick out, which you can see already just from a couple of pieces that's sticking out. And these are exactly the same size. But it's, you know, this is the same size as this one, but because it's in the middle and it's got that little bit of a you know, piece of paper already in the middle, it's going to push it out. So you'll notice they will start to push out the edge. So that's what you do. You take your pages and you do that. Now let me find, let me grab an 8.5 by 11 piece so I can show you. All right, so let's say you have a couple of 8.5 by 11 pieces, or just pieces that are not as big as a scrapbook 12 by 12 piece of paper. All you need to do is fold it in half, because then at the end, you can worry about getting all of this cut. You can put it into, you know, like I said, you could take a ruler, line it up to the edge, and a razor blade, and cut it. As long as you're slow and steady, it'll cut all the way through. And then you could do the same thing right here and cut it. Or if you have a rotary cutter, and when I say rotary, it has the wheel, the blade is like a circle, you can cut it as well by putting it in here and lining it up. Or you could just mark it, just like you did the other ones. You can kind of just mark it with a pencil and mark it with a pencil. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. Any way you look at it, you're just basically going to get your pages to be similar size. Now, that doesn't mean if you have like an extra piece like this and you're like, oh, I don't want to waste that. Well, no, don't waste it. You can utilize it by putting this in here somewhere, you know, and making it just an extra little flappy page, which are fun to have in your journals. And then you just put your next page in. So you could do stuff like that. So if you have like a box of kind of like scrapbook scraps that are not like really tiny, but they might go with what you're doing, you can utilize those and fold them in half and put them in. There's all kinds of things you could do. So don't think you have to have perfect pages, because you don't. So, okay, so now that we've gotten that out of the way and we know kind of what we're doing, and if you have any questions specifically about what we're doing and you're confused about anything, leave a comment. And in the next video, I will answer any questions that you have in, you know, that you leave in the comments of this video. So I'm going to, again, cut that white strip, and I'm cutting a few at a time, a few pages at a time. I think I have 3 here. Ooh, 4. I got 4. They're super thin. So that's what's nice about a rotary cutter. It can cut more pages at once than most other cutters can, which is why I like them. So again, I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to do this. I'm going to show you another trick in a minute, but I'm just going to get these started. Make sure you keep them fairly even when you do that. If you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. It's just paper. Utilize it. You know, if you cut it a little too short, big deal, stick it in anyway. You know what I mean? It's really not a big deal. Oh, I'm going to cut the other side before I go putting the cutter aside. Duh. Together. This cutter is the Fiskars, whatever, rotary cutter. You can get them at Joann's or online. I think they run around $30, but they are worth it to me. They're a little different to use than other cutters. There's a little bit of a learning curve just to get used to it, because unlike other cutters, this one has like a spring action. You push down the blade as you cut, so you got to put pressure. And when I say pressure, you got to put some pressure. It's not, you don't just do that. It's not going to cut. It's not like one of those other ones with the little tab thing that you used to do. Those to me are kind of useless, because they only cut like 1, maybe 2 sheets of paper. And they basically, they kind of rip the page rather than cut the page. They kind of rip through the page. Ugh, my sweater is going to get caught continuously on this cutter. They rip through the page, whereas this actually cuts the page. So I like this better. So I'm only going to fold 2 of these at a time so that it doesn't get sloppy. And then I'll do the edges, or you can use like a ruler to burnish the edge, is what it's called when you knock down a crease. You can just use the edge of a ruler. Edge of a ruler, the edge of your scissors. A lot of people use like the handle of their scissors, but these scissors are mushy, so that won't work. I wouldn't really use the metal part of the scissors because, I don't know, it might rip the paper. So you just put your paper in, you decide how you want it, put it all in. And again, don't worry about if it's not perfect. We're going to adjust everything at the end. This is just to get it going. Because like I have pages that are not even up here, they're not even here. Because like I said, they're gonna continue to push outward as you add more paper. Okay, so let me grab another piece. Hold on. Let's see. What did I do with it? I had a book over here. Oh, here we go. So this paper is a thicker scrapbook paper. But it has some good colors in it. So I'm going to grab just a couple of these. Now this is like a thicker paper, so we're not going to add a lot of these. We're going to add 2, maybe 3 maximum. You will add this one. I'll just do those 2 for now. And I'm also going to show you a trick with these as well. So the same deal, you could do this. You could, and I like to do this trick with these thicker scrapbook papers because of the fact that they're a little thicker and sturdier to do it with. I'm going to show you an easy way to add pockets or tuck spots. I'm going to show you what they look like here. This is a pocket. It's this paper, and it's all one piece. I didn't add this on afterward. It's, you know, but here it is here. So if you look at it this way, here's the paper, the piece of paper folded in half. And the only difference is it was a piece of large scrapbook paper, and I cut it and then folded up a piece and made it a pocket. I'm going to show you how to do that. And then there's also another way to make tuck spots as well, using this method. Let's see, where do I have those at? Or fold outs, actually. Either or, depending on the size of the paper. I'm trying to see if I have one that's a tuck spot. See how I have like shorter pieces in here? Here too. I throw them in all over the place. Do I not have any tuck spots in this one? Maybe I didn't make any of the tucky kind. Well, I'll show you them anyway. Yeah, I didn't make it. I just made pockets. I don't think I made tuck spots. And I don't have that other journal handy to show you. Okay, so if you want to make the pocket. Now for this particular journal, there's a lot of excess paper. If we were to measure it and cut it here, there's like a lot of excess paper. And to make the pocket, you only need a couple of inches. So what you would do is the same thing as you would do to make these papers. Take one of these to measure it out. And if you're going to make a pocket at the bottom of the page, if this is your page and this would be the bottom and this is the top and then these are the sides, you're going to make the side the same size as your paper. But instead of doing it here to make it the exact size, you're going to go up, and you can eyeball it. You can measure it if you want. It doesn't matter. So I'm just going to eyeball it because, you know, I'm just making a little pocket, and all I need is a couple of inches, and it doesn't have to be anything perfect. That might even be too big. It just depends on your paper. If you have like if you're doing a bigger journal and you have more paper, you can make a longer pocket, like from the bottom. So that's where I'm going to cut it this time. So instead of cutting it exactly to that, I'm going to cut now a little bit different. So I'm cutting it up here, and then I'm cutting it here. So now, I hope you were able to see that, because I just realized I have this zoomed in, which is why I don't zoom in my camera very much. I should zoom out a tad, because I'm really bad at staying on camera. Even though I have a freaking monitor in my face, I still don't stay on camera very well when it's zoomed in. I have a tendency to work all over the place. I'm like a hot mess. Hot mess, I tell you. So, okay, we have the paper that is the right width, but is all of a sudden really long. So if you take one of your pages or two of your pages and you line it up at the top and kind of do this, right? If you fold it up to meet that page, right? So let me get this nice and even again. Fold it up and just kind of start to crease it. Since this paper here is really thin, this could fold over and fold back too, so I'm being careful. You could put a ruler at the edge of this page here, which would probably be the best thing to do. At the edge of your thin paper here. I can't see the edge, which makes it hard. That looks about right, kind of. Okay, and then start creasing it up like that, and then you can see your fold. Then what you want to do is just finish folding it. Just make sure your edges are even and that it's sitting, which mine is not. Either I didn't cut it straight or it's just not sitting very even. I think I didn't cut it very straight. Yeah, this is not cut very straight. I did not do a good job. Let me make sure that is cut properly. It's not too far off. So which side is uneven then? One of these sides is uneven. This side, very uneven. Oh, wow. That's where the culprit is. Okay, let me fix this. My page is like, it was that uneven where it was like fat at this end. Yeah, that's why we're having an issue. Okay, so anyway, so you fold up your page, and now it should even up on the edges. If it doesn't, and you don't feel like fussing with it, just turn it over and slice off anything you see that's white on either side. It doesn't have to be perfect. No need for absolute perfection. And then burnish it down so it's nice and flat. Now, you're going to treat it like you would any other page and just fold it in half. Now, this is where you might have some overhang issues. And see, look, I cut it really uneven, so I can go in and fix it after I cut it. As long as you get like one corner, you know, in there, well, this page was cut tremendously uneven. So, not bad. I can just follow, since it's a thicker piece of paper, I can just follow the line. It doesn't really matter because once it gets in the journal, it's not going to matter. It's not like it's going to show, but I think it's just, this is, I think actually, like once you put it in the journal, it's not like these two sides are ever going to butt up against each other because there's going to be other things in the middle. So you're never going to notice that. But for the sake of my OCD, I'm going to get this top part evened out a bit. I'm terrible at cutting. That's the problem with this cutter too. If you're not real careful and you don't hold your paper down really well, it can cut things a little uneven on the uneven side. So you just got to keep that in mind. But like I said, it doesn't matter that tremendously much at this point. Except for when it doesn't cut at all. And I probably need a new blade in there already. I've been cutting like a crazy person. Alright, so you just do the best you can to even up those pages a little. If you want to. Alright, so there we go. So there's our page, just like any other page. It's not difficult. You just fold up the bottom a little bit and then you put your page in like that, and you have a pocket. But what you're going to do is after you put this into your journal cover, you're going to take a little line of glue right along the inside here and just close it down. Put another little line of glue on this side and close it down. And then you got a pocket. So that's how you make a very basic, very easy journal pocket that'll make you look like a pro. Real easy. I'm going to show you how to make a tuck. I call it a tuck because it's a sideways pocket and it's more of like a tuck spot than it is a pocket. Oh, and I have this page here that stick in there. I just keep adding pages, and as you see, it starts to pop out the center. Like I said, we'll fix that. So let's say this one, we want to make the tuck spots. So we're going to do exactly what we did on the other one, except this time, since we made this way longer, we're going to make it this way longer. It can be a tuck or a flip out. I'll explain that in a minute. So you take your page that you want to measure. This time, we're going to make the top not longer because we're not making a pocket. So we're going to make that the same size. And then over here, we're not going to cut this off on this one at all. We're not going to mark it or anything. It's fine. You know, the more the merrier pretty much. So we're just going to cut it straight across that way. Make sure that's even. Yeah. Okay, then you just fold it in half, like as if you were making a really long page. Now you don't have to fold it in half here. You could do it several ways. If you wanted a tuck spot, like a tuck pocket, folding it in half works best. So I'll show you that. So what we're going to do is, like, let's say this was the signature, you know, the rest of the pages were on it and everything. You see how far it's sticking out? Well, instead of folding it up, we're just going to fold each side in. So that then we're going to glue it here, and then it's a tuck. But you also can decide to, instead of folding it right in the center, fold it over here, kind of do this, and then fold it with that one so it's even on this side and really long on this side, and then fold this side in, and it'll be more of a like flip out page, kind of like what I have in here somewhere. Don't I have one in here? Probably not. No, dang it, I probably don't have any in that journal. But it would be like, you've seen them before where they're kind of like, you open the page and then it has a side, a flap that opens. So you could do that. But we're going to do the tuck spot thing. And so here's the trick with this now. Because these pages are going to get cut on this end quite a bit. We're not going to fold this in yet. We're going to wait on these. So we're just going to leave it like this. And we're not even going to put it in the journal right now. So just cut it to the right length, up and down. Leave the length this way alone and put it aside. Don't do anything else with it at this time. We're going to put it in a little bit. So then, let's see. Let's do one of those pages. Let's get another thick one, and we'll do one of those pages where it's like a flap. Here, we'll do this one. That's nice. I'm glad that ripped. Rippy pages. Stupid rippy pages. And I need a couple more pages. Well, actually, I'll use the ones that are over there. There's still some. Duh. Okay. I forgot there was more. All right. I need to even up that top because I ripped it. Well, actually, I don't have to worry about it because I can make it at the top there. Okay. Anyway. So I'm going to do the same thing I just did. I'm going to make the up and down part the same as this. And then I'm going to leave that. So So these are just different things you could do with your pages. These are a lot of what I do with my pages and keep it that simple. None of my journals are extremely complicated. I don't put complicated pockets. That's something you can learn later. I put very easy to do pockets that are like just easy, just no big deal. So then you're going to pretend like the page is only as long as to here, and you're going to not pay much mind to this part, and you're just going to fold it in half the best you can along with that page. Kind of start the fold, and then you can kind of even it up and work it out here. And then again, don't fold this one yet. Don't fold that one quite yet, because we're going to wait and see what our final size of the pages are going to be, because obviously, like I said, we got to cut. So we're going to wait and see how that turns out. But for now, you could just fold the first page over. So set that aside, put your page back together. Now, this is a little thin. We can fit more pages. You got to be careful with a one signature journal like this, because you don't want to like go hog wild and end up with 8 million pages and make it so thick that it's like, you know, crazy town. So, and I can't tell you like, oh, well, how many pages should I put in? It kind of depends on what kind of paper you're using. I'll tell you how many pages are in this one after we get all our pages in, so that you have a gauge or an idea. With a couple of thicker pages and then a bunch of thin pages, it'll give you kind of an idea. But you might want it really thick, or you might want it thinner than what I make. It kind of depends on what you like. So again, I'm just cutting the pages as I did for the other thinner pages that I did before. And these will be folded in half. Do 2 at a time. These look uneven as well. No, they're okay. Now, I have a bone folder. I don't need to use the ruler, but if you don't have one, you can use anything. So that's why I say it's a little time consuming, because you got to sit here and do all your pages, and, you know, got to do your due diligence to get everything put together. And I'm not worried about where all the pages are. Like, we're going to switch around, like, so that there's, you know, there's brown pages and there's black pages. I'm going to mix them together. But right now I'm just worried about getting the feel of how many. And you can even do this to kind of also get the feel, and keep in mind as well that this is going to be part of that at some point. We're just not going to worry about it right now. And so are these 2 flaps when they get folded in. So it's going to thicken it even more. So you want to keep that in mind. But I'm just getting an idea and a feel for what's there right now. And I can add still a few more pages. So we're going to just grab all of these here. Not the little ones. We might put a few of those in. But the rest of these, I am just going to, there's probably 6 or 7 pages here. I'm just going to suck it up and do all of them, because I think it might be able to handle it. I just need a page to measure it to. Come here, with me. Thank you. Now, I don't advise doing this many pages if you don't have the experience. I would just do 2 pages at once, so that, you know, or whatever. Unless you have a lot of experience just cutting paper in general, which a lot of people do. But if you have a different type of cutter, again, you're going to want to use less paper, because your cutter might not be able to handle that many paper. And people always ask me about guillotine cutters. I personally like to use guillotine cutters to cut like cereal boxes and stuff. I'm not big on using guillotine cutters to cut paper. I just am stupid and don't use it. I don't know. It doesn't work as best for me. It just doesn't work as well for me as using a rotary cutter like this. So that's what I use, is a rotary cutter. But if you're comfortable with a guillotine cutter, then go for it. If that does it for you, and you know, I don't feel a guillotine cutter can cut as many papers as this, though. I can cut through a tremendous amount of paper with that thing, but not with a guillotine. It starts to push the papers out and make them uneven. Okay, so I'm going to grab a couple of these. I only want 2. I like to fold them no more than 2 at a time, just because, I don't know, I feel like it folds better if you only have a couple of them. And if they're not perfect, if they're not folded 100% perfect, don't fret. It's not, in the long run, it ain't going to make a difference. You're not going to notice it if they're slightly off. If I can just get it to bend a little bit for me. Okay. So let's see what this feels like now. I'm just going to stack all these together and get a feel for how thick it is. And that's what I mean. That's the part where it's like, it's not hard by any means. It's just you got to get a feel for it. You'll get a feel for it after you do a couple. Let's see. Let's pretend I'm putting them on the outside here. And also, another thing you have to keep in mind when you're putting together your signatures is how much embellishing you plan on doing, or how much stuff you plan on doing in here. If you plan on putting a lot of photos or like pictures or graphics, or if you plan on embellishing it, then I would not put a ton of pages in it. I would be careful how many pages you're putting in and put less than you probably think if you're going to heavily embellish it. If you're going to lightly embellish it, then obviously you want it to be in the middle. If you're not really going to embellish it at all and you're going to use it for writing, you know, let's pretend this is just copy paper or lined paper of some sort, then obviously you could put more. I think that, let me grab my piece of vinyl here. Now, like I said, it's going to stick out the side, of course, because you have to cut everything down. I think I can fit a few more pieces, and what I'm going to do is utilize some of these littler pages over here that wound up, and I can make some of these those little flaps as well, like I did this one, but I'm just not going to do that initially. So I'm going to take this page, and it's shorter, but as long as I line it up this way, if I can get it to line up, then I can fold it and just get the fold kind of started, and then take that out and fold it. And then again, don't worry about folding that in until after. So you can do this one. You can do it this way too. If it's folded, you can kind of just even it to there. And then, you know, get the other side to even up somehow. I don't know. It might be easier to do it this way. Whatever way you do it. Or you could do it the other side too, so that the flap is on this side by just doing that, right? And folding it from this side. Because what that'll do is now, when you put it in, you'll have the flap over on this side. So you should do a few on each side if you're going to do that, which this will make a lot of sense when we get to that stage of putting the papers more in, you know, the right way. So don't worry about it right this second. So I'll put one more of those, and then we can do one or two of the little ones. Let me do one this way, or this way, I mean. And you don't even have to make it that long. You can, if you want this flap to be a bit longer, which, yeah, I can make it a little longer. I can just go in a little bit and make it a little shorter of a page this way, like that, and then this flap will go in. Now, it'll have to be either cut or folded over because it might be a bit long. If you fold that over, it's going to go over the seam. But you can make that into a tuck spot. So it'll be a fold open page that has a little tuck. So, you know, there are lots of things you could do in that case. So then here's these other pages that are a bit shorter that are just, you know, that length there. So we can do one of those and then get a feel for how thick it is at that point. Yeah, I don't have a perfect number in my head. I kind of just go by how it feels. I like to put these on the outside initially so that I can feel it all together. So that can go like that, and that can go. And again, this is not the final way I'm putting all these papers, but for now I'm just going to do it this way, like this. They're all going to be like this. And if you turn them this way, then the flaps will be on this side. But for now, just to measure the girth of this sucker, put them all the same way. And now you'll see also what I mean about the pages as you add more. You notice this is the first page. And look, all these pages are sticking out. And they're all the same page size as this. But what happens is as they go towards the middle, it thickens. You see what I mean? And there's more of a like a ½ inch right here, which means it's going to stick out a ½ inch or whatever. So that's an important thing to know and recognize. All right, so this is a bit thick, but it's fine. It's fine. This is a good thickness. We're good here. So how many pages did we decide on before it was good? I'm going to take out all the heavy ones, the heavy scrapbook paper ones, which is there only 2? Did I only do 2? Oh no, there's 3 because there's this pocket one. So these are 3 heavier papers, and then let's count how many of these there are. Okay, and I'll count them like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So there's 19 pages times 2 when it comes to a journal because you're folding it in half. So 19 and then 20, 21, and 22. So there's going to be 22 pages folded in half, which means there's going to be 44 pages in this journal. That's a pretty thick journal. That's going to end up being thick by the time I fold these over. Do you know what I mean? So it is going to be a bit thick. So, you know, embellishing is going to be minimal. I'm not going to do like massive unless you want it to be like really fat when it's embellished. You can do that too. So now I'm again going to leave all of the longer pages off. And I'm even going, well, this one doesn't have to be off. But I'm going to start now figuring out where I want all my pages to be and how I want them situated. So do I want all of these patterns to be exactly like that in the book? That's what I'm going to work with now. See, like I have 2 of them that are, these couple that are brown right next to each other. So I'm going to mix them in a little bit more so that they're not all together, and just kind of mix them around how you want them. You can leave them just how you do it. Doesn't matter. Just do it whatever makes you happy. I'm just going to kind of mix through these brown ones so that they're all spread throughout a little bit, and make sure there's no 2 patterns that are so incredibly close to each other in, you know, the way they look. Not super close. Like, okay. Okay, looks good. Now this one, I'm going to put this one not in the middle, but maybe a few pages down, like that. Okay. So the only pages we want here is these, not the ones that are like fancy. Now that one is fancy, but that one still is the same size, so it's fine. So now what we want to do is, if you care that this is a little taller, we're going to start cutting. And we're going to start with the top like that, since it is sticking up. Now in this instance, you can do all these together, but you could probably do them separately. It's probably better to do them separately, but you could do them. Now because this is quite thick, and you might not have a rotary cutter, I don't know, but what you're going to want to do is have a guide paper. So this first one is as tall as I want all of these. So this one right here is as tall as I want any of these to be. So what I would do is, in this case, and if you have a cutter that does not cut a lot of paper, or if you don't want to, and I don't advise anybody cutting them all at once initially, it's just take your time and do it the way I'm about to show you. So take off as many pages as you can cut at once in your cutter or whatever. And if you have ones that are little, obviously either keep them right where they are in the middle so that they don't get mixed in, or take them out while you're doing this. And I put them in my cutter and I line it up to the line, and I can cut them like this without, you know, messing anything else up really. So now you've got even pages. There's a white line at the top of this one, so that's why it looks like there's a page sticking up when there isn't. And then when you've done one section, you could put your piece back in that you had, if you had a short piece in there. So then you're going to take and put that aside, take the middle page out, and move on to the next couple, because this is going to be your guide now, because those are all the same. So take three, you know, however many pages you can cut at once. I can cut a fair amount. And you're going to put that again like this, and it's sticking up because this is now your guide. So you're going to turn it over, get them all stacked down, and you're going to do the same thing. You're just going to cut them all even at the top as best you can. If it's not perfect, well, so be it. Okay. And now they all, well, that one's not great. Let's fix that. If it's a little uneven, this one seems a little crooked maybe. I need to potentially get a new blade here. Yep, we're crooked. Just by a hair. Just by the hair of my chinny chin chin. Okay, now it should be better. Alright, there we go. Better. It's not perfect, but better. Okay, and then we're going to put that in here. Take the middle one out. Grab a couple from here. Put them inside of this one. And again, it'll stick out. Now, if you only grab a couple, you don't have to open it. You could do it closed, which is what I prefer to do, actually. If your cutter will allow it. If not, you may have to do it open. Now, if you don't care that they're sticking up and it doesn't bother you, and you don't care whether they're that even, as long as they're not sticking out of the top of your journal cover, it doesn't matter. You don't have to do this and go through all this trouble, but I like to, because I think it looks nice when they're pretty even. So I'm going to grab the rest of these now, put that, whoops, that's supposed to go on the outside, not the inside. Outside. And now these, oh yeah, these are still need to be cut a little bit. Okay. And then they go in the middle. Now, all our pages are not sticking up over. Of course, that one has that white lip on there, so it's hard to see. So, all your pages are even that way. So now, we want to get all these pages even this way, but in this case, when it came to the ones we just cut, we knew that the width or the length of the journal, we knew what that was. It was based off that page because we worried about that more in the beginning as opposed to this here, because I told you what was going to happen. So I told you not to worry about it sticking out and pages being really long because we were going to deal with it. So this is where we're going to deal with it. So with any kind of flimsy fabric-y journal that doesn't have a good crease, it's a little harder to get it lined up. But you want to line up your cover so that it's nice and even and where it's going to be. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your pencil and you're not going to mark right here because it's going to be like literally flush with your edge. So you're going to just open it up the inside flap and just come in a little bit. So if if it's here and you open the flap, come in about 1/8 of an inch so that you give yourself a little bit of leeway, probably a little more than that even. Let's see. Yeah. Because you want there to be a little bit of space. So here's my line. It's hard to see because I'm doing it on the paper, but it's there. So now what I'm going to do is the same thing I just did with all that top paper, except I'm going to do it on the side. I'm going to take the first couple of pages. I'm going to fold them over, and I like to do it this way because you have to get both of these. And it's impossible to do it the way we did the top because the top was right here. Well, you have to cut both sides. And the best way to do that so that it stays perfectly even, you can't do it when it's open. It won't be even when you close it. It's not going to be nice and flush. So you want to make sure that you're only grabbing enough pages so that when you fold them in half, you're still able to cut through them, whichever method you decide to do. Whether it's your cutter, whether it's a ruler with a razor blade, whatever. So my cutter will cut through all these, so I'm not worried about it. And then you have your guide line, and you're just going to take it. And this type of cutter, as long as I go back and forth, I can cut all of that off and make it perfectly flat on that side. However, as soon as I put this on, you'll see that's how much we have to cut off. So that means I'm going to take the next page, take a few pages with it. And so I'll have two piles, one pile of finished and one pile that we're about to do. And then we're going to put this back on, and then we're going to grab this paper with some of these. Like, it's kind of like you get a system going. It makes it easier. So right now, I am just, and you want to continuously, like when you're about to cut, make sure everything is tapped in, because if it's sticking out too much and you don't realize it, you're going to cut more than you want. So make sure everything's tapped in and where you want it, and then I line it up and I just push it against the bar there. Push the ones that are already cut up against flush. And voila. And then they stay flush. So then I open it, take the middle one, take a few of these. And just cut the excess off. And you could blow through, you know, several pages within a very short period of time. And like, that's why I say it's not hard. This isn't rocket science. As long as you take your time and don't rush it and be patient, you'll get faster as you go. Worry about the speed later, but right now, and then here's your page. And see what happens is, as you're cutting these pages, you're going to notice something. That's the middle page. Look how much shorter it is, because as it gets to the middle, the pages are going to be shorter, even though they don't look it. But because you've got this bulk of paper here that's pushing, so it doesn't go back as far as this one does. So you've got that much that's being cut off of each edge, if that makes sense. And as it gets more and more and more, these get shorter and shorter and shorter. But you have to measure it. You can't take this middle wad of paper and decide, oh, I'll take the top one and measure it against it, because it's going to be too long. You have to take the middle one to measure it against. Not the back, not the first one, because it's going to be closest to this size when folded. And it has to be folded when you're doing these. And see, I was able to cut through quite a few pages with this cutter. And so there we go. And so now, as you see, look, it's so much shorter, but when you put it in here, it's not. It's pretty flush. So that's how you cut your edge pieces. So now we've got our little things. Now this is going to depend on several things here. It's going to depend on the placement of where you put it, because like I said, if you put it in the middle, we're going to need to cut some off of here. We're not going to cut any off of here because I'm going to show you how to fold that and work that in. But here, we're going to have to cut off. But if we put it like this, we don't have to cut it off because it's on the outside, so it's wrapping around more thick paper, so it's not going to be as cut. But obviously, we don't just want to put all of them back here. We want to weave them through the journal and put some of them like this as well, so that they fold in from the left side, and some of them fold in from the right side. So that's what we're going to do now, is just figure out where we want everything. So I've got two thicker ones. I'm going to do those first. So I definitely want to put, since I put one thick one here, I'm going to put one thick one on the outside. And let's do this one. I'm going to put one thick one here. Now this one, we don't have to cut anything off. We're just going to fold on this one. So that one we don't have to cut. So we know that's going to go on the outside. Let's put that aside. Now we have one of the thicker ones here, a few pages in. So let's put another thick one, another few pages in, so that they're kind of spaced a little evenly. So yeah, let's put one right here. We'll put this one right here. Like that. Like I said, we're not going to cut this bigger flap. We're going to cut it right here. So all I'm going to do now is take this and guide it up against this page here. So set that aside. Whoopsie. Oh, don't forget there might be some middle ones after it, so you have to set those aside as well. And now I'm going to even it up with this. Carefully open it so that I don't cut both sides, because we're not doing both sides. And do the same thing just with the one side on this one. So you're going to put it to the side like that. Then you're going to do this. You're going to stick it back in here. You're going to open it and put your middle pieces back in. And then voila, it's flush here. And again, we'll deal with this in a minute. So then we got this one, which we don't have to worry about cutting because we're going to do folding on both sides. So that one you don't need to cut because we're going to fold both sides in. So then we've got these ones, and there's 1, 2, 3. So we're going to make one of them come this way, and we're going to just stick that in maybe, what's the pattern on this? Let's see. Maybe we'll stick it right here. So if we stick it like this, okay, let's see, does it stick out? No, the first one does not stick out. So that one's golden. And really, I can show you what to do with these so that they're out of the way. So when they're sticking out like this, we're making little flaps. I call them flappy doos. I call them little flappy doos. So what you're going to do is gather up your pages. Usually would do one before you put the other one in, but so I'm going to open this and I'm going to grab onto the next page. So I'm just going to open it and make sure I have the next page available, because I'm going to fold it over the next page so that it gives me a guide on where to fold it. Like that. You can also just fold it like this and fold it in so that it's, you know, even with that page. Just fold it over. And now that's a page and that's done. You see what I'm saying? Now, when you're going through your journal, you go like this. Oh, look at my pages. And you'll have this page and you'll go, oh, cool. And you can embellish it and whatever, make it a little surprise flappy page. Same thing on this side, but this time I'm just going to open it to this page. I got to make sure it's even first because you want to make sure everything is nice and flush and do it kind of carefully so that it doesn't fold uneven or cattywampus. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this over and I'm just going to even it up with this middle page here as best I can, the page below it. Now, if it's a little shorter in, that's fine. It doesn't matter. Just as long as it's not longer than the pages here. Now, as you can see, this is too long. So what can you do? Because it looks like you got about, I don't know, about that much that's too long. So if you open this, and it doesn't matter if it ends up a little shorter, it's fine. And fold it in, and then you're going to put glue here, and then you've got a tuck. So now you've got a fold out with a tuck too. And yes, it's a little shorter than the pages. Shorter is fine, just not longer. So, and obviously if I use the bone folder, it would lay a little flatter. That's why I said like the journal's even going to be thicker because you're going to, once you fold all this stuff in and realize what you got going on. So now here's, you know, your pages, and you get to this page and it's a, and this will be a tuck, and you can tuck like something in there. Okay. So now you've got this one. So we got to figure out how we want that one. Let's see. Let's make that one going where the flap is on this side of the book. Because we've got this one that's on this side. We'll do it on the opposite side. So we'll go in a few pages, like here. And move that out of the way. Put this here. Open that up. Close it in and see. It is just sticking out ever so slightly. But not that one. That one's sticking out. I don't care about that one right now. Where's the other one at? Here it is. Okay, so this one's not sticking out. Okay, good. This is the one. I thought it was that one. That one is sticking out a little bit, but I can fix that one. So yeah, this one's perfect. I don't need to do anything with that. So then we get to the flap part. And this flap might be too long in here. If it is, again, I'll make a little tuck out of it. Just folding it in, and then again, it's a little long, so I'm going to make a tuck. It only needs to be like an inch, and you can tuck something in it. And then again, you have your so everything is nice and contained, and you've got your different little pieces. And then we've got two more pieces. See, this is a little thick now that we're doing this. So now we can do another one that's going that way, and we could put it right here if we want. Put it here. And again, this one is going to stick out over here, I think. Yeah. So this one's sticking out on that side. So I'm going to open it up. I'm going to take this and the next page with it. I'm going to move those separately so I know it goes in here and then this goes inside of it. And I'm going to, since we're going to fold that one, I just need to worry about this and making sure I'm able to cut it as evenly as possible. I need to put it down. This one's a thinner one. It's not as tall, so okay. So I just need to cut this one. Alright, and while I'm here, I can even fold this over because I don't need it in the journal to do it. Get it started, and then I can just crease it. And then again, it's a little too tall. You can cut that part off if you want, or just make a little teeny weeny tuck spot. So then you have that. Is this outside or this is inside? I think. Doesn't really matter because it's just one page. It'll be fine. Okay. Okay, so then we got this one. Now this one, all we have to worry about is making sure that when we fold it in, which I'm going to go with this here and try to guide that in a bit and make sure, yeah, that'll be good. You just want to fold it in so that it's not sticking out too much of the other ones. Do it on the other side. See, it's just a little finagling and messing around. It's just to get your pages as even as you can. Like I just lay it down and even it out. It doesn't matter if it's too short, as long as it's not too long. All right. Let's see how it looks in here, if anything's sticking out or if it's good to go. I think we might have a problem with, well, it's sticking out a little bit. We have some pages that are just a tad too long, and I think it's all the folded pages. Maybe I should have made it a little shorter. Always go a little shorter. I mean, it'll be fine, but it's like fine, but I'm a little picky, so I'm just going to grab those folded pages and fold them in a little bit, like this one. I'm just going to go in ever so slightly more with this. And if it's sticking over, then it's going to be a tuck on this side, because, and I can make a teeny tiny tuck. It doesn't matter how big it is or how small it is, as long as it works. Okay, let's see, getting better. Let's do this one back here. Okay, we got this one over here. Let's see. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. Now we're cooking with gas. It could use to be slightly more in, but it's fine. You got like a little lip there, and it'll all work out in the end when you sew it in or string it in. So there you go. There's your pages. So very easy peasy. Nothing to it. Right? Right. That's the easiest way to do a one signature journal for your first journal, which is what I advise. Now, regardless of whether you're doing a vinyl cover or a paper cover, and like I said, a paper cover would even be easier because you would, oh, I forgot a piece of paper. You would, you know, let's just say this was your cover. Obviously, you wouldn't use copy paper. It would be no different, because then you would have, you know what I'm saying? That would be your cover, just like this. It's no different. I guess I can put this on here, I guess, because, is it a little long? Well, maybe I'll save it for another journal, because this one's quite thick. And so the next thing to do is decide how many holes you want to put in. And now most people, the standard is 3 holes. So I'm going to show you how to do 3 holes. But honestly, for some, especially something this small, you could just put 1 hole there, 1 hole there, put the string through and tie it. So in other words, you'd put 1 hole here, 1 hole here, and the same thing with your papers. You'd line it up to put 2 holes. You know what I'm saying? The string would come in there, out there, go back in here, and then you'd tie it. That's it. Like, just basically that's it. It's easy as that, and it would be perfectly fine. It does not matter. It is not going to make it any more sturdier just because you put 3 holes or 2 holes. It's going to be exactly the same sturdiness. Sturdiness has nothing to do with how many holes you put in. It really doesn't, because it just needs to hold the paper in. Now, if you had a bigger journal and you had a lot of different size pages in it, and some of them, if you had like a really big journal like this one, and you had some pages that were like this, that were like really short this way, then yeah, you'd want more than 2 holes, because then you'd only have one string going through here, and it might be not quite as sturdy. So you'd want to have like 3 holes and make sure that one's going through and then the next one and then the next one, or whatever. But the odds of that being the issue with a small one signature journal is very rare. So, and I have done it where there was only 1 hole in this and the rest of them were bigger. I've done it like that. It is fine, but you know. So what I'm going to do is we're going to stop here, since I've been on here for an hour and a half, and I'm going to make another video showing you how to now put your string and string through 3 holes and do all that part, because that part's probably going to take another hour or so, because I'm trying to go as slow as possible. I'm trying to break it down to the simplest way. So don't think I'm being like, you know, trying to be like, oh, you're stupid. I don't think that. I just want to make it as easy as possible, because this is not hard. Nothing I did right now was hard at all. If you take your time and just even up your pages and, you know, measure everything out and make sure it doesn't stick out. And if it does, you can go back through and cut more if you need to, or fold them in more if it's the ones that are folded. You know what I'm saying? You do all your adjusting, you get your paper. That's the first step with any journal. You decorate the cover later. You know what I mean? Unless you're doing a cover like this where you're covering a cereal box, then the first step I do, which I've got 2 started here, is the first step I do is get the cereal box prepared and cover it, which I'm going to show you in a totally other video. So I would do the cover like this first, but I still wouldn't decorate it. Like, I haven't embellished any of these covers yet, because I usually do that last. So I always deal with the pages first, because I don't want to have it all embellished and then try to deal with the pages and have like the embellishment like be here and uneven and a pain in the ass. I like to get it all strung before I embellish the cover, if I'm going to embellish the cover. Like, you could just leave it plain if you wanted to. But this is the first step, is to get to utilize what you're going to, you know, figure out what you're going to do for a cover, cut that all where you want it to be, and then do your pages and just find random papers. You can use vintage papers, use whatever you want. I'm just using some old scrapbook paper because I know most people have some old scrapbook paper lying around that they could use. So, you know, and if you only have the thick kind of scrapbook paper, use that. You just can't use as many pages. That's all. You'll probably be able to use like half the pages, and don't make all of them like this. Do some of them where they're just straight pages and nothing else, and then do like 3 that are fancy with a pocket that folds up and a pocket and tuck spot, whatever. You know what I mean? So do what you got to do. So I hope you enjoyed this, and let me know, like I said, any questions you have about what we just went over today, put them in the comments, and then in the next video, I'm going to look at the questions in the beginning and answer anything, or answer it while I'm doing whatever is going to happen next. Like, if you have questions about binding it, don't bother asking those, because I will probably answer all them anyway in the video where I show you how to bind it. But if you have questions about what we've done so far in this video, if you're unsure about something, put it in the comments below. And also, like I said, if you've ever made a journal, or if you haven't made a journal and you're afraid, let me know why. What's scary about it, so that I can maybe address your fears. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you have a good week, and I will talk to you again soon. Make sure you're doing what you love and loving what you do, and I will talk to you guys later.